You're listening to Design Between the Lines, the only design and home furnishings podcast where we talk with the movers and shakers, industry innovators, and lifetime legends of the home furnishings industry. It's here that I get a chance to sit and chat with the influencers shaping the industry into what it is today. This episode of Design Between the Lines is brought to you by Strictly Santi, award-winning designer David Santiago's trademark brand, known for a clear, distinct vision that transcends from residential to hospitality design. David's unique and custom upholstered furniture, lighting, and wall coverings have his signature touch of color and graphic element. His collections are made to order and available through strictlysanti.com, American Brass and Crystal, and Bijou Wall Coverings. Embrace the unexpected and get ready to be santified. Today I'm excited to welcome Jaye Anna Mize, Vice President of Creative at Fashion Snoops. With a passion for trend psychology, technology, and design, Jaye has branched across fashion into home interiors through her development in trend forecasting over the past 16 years. Working with major brands worldwide, Jaye spends her time covering international events and analyzing key cultural influencers within the home and interior markets to produce macro and micro projections. She is skilled in understanding consumer behavior and how that connects to product development, lifestyle forecasting, brand development, and retail strategies. Jaye, it's great to have you on Design Between the Lines today.
Thanks. I'm excited. Hi.
Hi. When we're here on a day that you're going to be having great fun.
I know.
Doing some trend work.
I know.
All day.
All day long.
Oh, my goodness. Well, that is your bailiwick, is it not?
Yep. Exactly. Yeah. Today we are, each season collectively, the entire creative team at Fashion Snoops comes together for about a 6-hour meeting virtually where each one of us presents where we feel like we're going for the season. But you have to realize that we're working 2 years in advance. So it's for 23, 24. So we're also working on like 2024 macros and looking at micro.
When you say macro, tell me a little bit about what is macro.
So a macro is a macro trend, meaning that we're looking at big picture movements.
So 20,000 foot level.
Yep, exactly. And how we really track that is that we have an AI development software that we tag to different algorithms on the internet. So mostly news resources. And what that does is it tracks things like technology, wellness, sustainability, all of those big hot topics. And from there, we're able to really look at what that data brings to the table and kind of segment it into micro trends. Okay. So first, you have to formulate your micros to be able to then bucket them into what would be a macro. Okay. So if we're looking at sustainability, you might have like the climate crisis, and then you might have greenwashing, and then you might have, different material applications that kind of come to the forefront. So looking at it from that perspective, you can kind of see and navigate where the macro trend will be pushing down the line. We know sustainability is always going to be happening, but it's always evolving. So it's our job to kind of figure out where it's going to next, have that kind of like projection of what's going to happen over the next 2 years with sustainability. But there's a ton of different topics that we really look into, things like human identity, we just said sustainability, but wellness, like all of those kind of top of mind topics, which is interesting.
Are there cross references, Jaye? Like for example, they're inventing new materials all the time. Yep. I was on a webinar a couple of weeks ago about new materials, and the subject came up, when you're inventing these things or they crop up and you see something, don't you also have to look at how that's going to affect the environment? Because, the new materials may prevent one thing and create another problem. Is that something you guys consider, the kind of cross, I want to say cross-referencing, but it's really not.
There's always like an ebb and flow to trends, right? Yeah. So like when you're having, a great example is sustainability and wellness. Those two have been like so interchangeable to where they're like almost on a one-track line together at this point because people are associating wellness with being eco-friendly. So I think as a business owner or CEO, you really kind of have to understand that the attributes of sustainability actually kind of coincide with people feeling good about themselves. Like the mental health crisis is right in there with sustainability, which is kind of wild to say, but and it also really predicts things like the colors that we'll be projecting, with eco items. So you'll see a lot more like wellness colors come into the forefront, a lot more like wellness materials, things that kind of have those attributes. And, they'll probably segment for a while and go on the same track and then spread apart as that feels good to consumers, and the more that they adapt them, and you'll then see wellness take another turn or sustainability kind of merge into something else, which is really quite interesting. So it's all about tracking those little tiny dots and lines and pushing it all together. But to talk about what we're doing today with Fashion Snoop, so we look at the micro and macro projections, and then we look at how that is translated into the overall design and how it will be relatable seasonally. So, when you're looking at different consumers and consumer paths and adaptability rates, obviously the urban environments adapt sooner than like the middle of suburbia or even just very rural areas. So we're constantly looking at how those macros will really hit into different markets at different times. So we're working on fall 23-24 right now, really kind of understanding where we'll be politically, understanding where we'll be economically, really kind of doing those projections, and then figuring out what are the themes that will be happening in design that are paired to that. What are the colors? What are the details? What are the prints and patterns? What are surfaces, especially within furniture? Furniture is an interesting industry because it moves so much slower. It is a long manufacturing timeline,
Yes, it is.
And it's even longer now due to COVID.
Even longer.
So the big things that we're kind of seeing within furniture is almost like it's gone, or it will be going completely minimalist at that point, just so the end consumer can kind of dress it up as they want to, like dress up their home or dress up their spaces.
Sure.
But the foundational pieces really are your furniture lines, which is interesting.
Well, we've been through, obviously, the last 18 months. If they haven't been acquainted with their home furniture, I don't know when they will be. And many of them have been acquainted in a negative way as they sat on them doing Zooms and whatever over the next, and kids did homework and whatever. Boy, did that, I imagine that did affect in a radical way how people thought about their home that they really hadn't thought about before.
You're stuck in your home. You have to really look at the same things every single day. I feel like we were just just there randomly or by the seat of our pants a little bit before, it's like
you're just walking through.
Yeah, exactly. You weren't really actually having to have so much emotion as to why you're purchasing, which is quite interesting for the home versus fashion, where you cleaned out your closet and now you just want very cozy basics at this point. So it's definitely a lot more of an emotional connection, I think, with COVID.
I would imagine so. In so many ways, and I'm guessing that also has to do with what you mentioned earlier about mental health kind of moving up to the forefront, and we see it now every day in the news. The results of it, unfortunate results, and also some positives about people helping each other, if nothing else.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that there shouldn't be a stigma against having mental health, and maybe a lot of the transparency has actually kind of done some good because I grew up with ADD, so you have that as a girl, people don't recognize it, that type of thing. My parents were like, what's going to happen with you? And I'm like, I don't know. Moved me to New York, where I thrive in that environment. Yeah. And it's just, I think there was a lot of stigma towards that, in the 90s, of, growing up with that kind of thing. But now I've been able to kind of use it to my advantage. Yeah. So I think, from a mental health perspective, for sure. I mean, when you look at mental health and you equate it to design, it's really interesting because you don't realize that, you're on your phone all the time and you're so desensitized to your surroundings. Mm-hmm. So we've actually attributed the overconsumption of the internet a lot with mental health, but also how to reground yourself in spaces. And so if you equate that to design, you want to design for better. It's really about more tactile pieces, things that make people feel like when you slide your hand across it, it actually kind of regrounds you in the space. There's a lot of things that happen like on a subliminal level with your furniture pieces specifically that you don't even realize, right? From how comfortable they are to the way that they feel, the way they touch, the way they smell, everything about them, those sensory elements that bring you back in. So we're seeing a lot more product design kind of go into those arenas of being very tactile or grounded, like with a lot lower bases, a lot smoother woods, a lot more kind of like pristine, clean finishes, things that are very soothing and harmonious to the eye. And a lot of those kind of like basic repetitions that you see actually like within a lot of soothing pattern work that really is, you know, creating these calming spaces. And it's really due to this mental health epidemic that we're going through. And so that's one of the biggest things that we're projecting is that's really, you know, things are going to be a lot more in balance. Modernism is coming back in a huge way, which is really interesting as you talk to this, because I think that we all want a little bit more elevation to our spaces and a little bit more sophistication than where we've been. So pairing those two together, I'm excited. And personally,
I can imagine. I can see that in your eyes. I can see that. So tell me, we were talking a little bit about mental health. I'm going to shift the conversation a little bit towards how you see people working now versus when you got into this business. You know, tell me the differences between then and, you know, 16 years later, what you see when you go to shows and other things and you witness how people are working together now versus what were they doing then? Do you see what's the shift in that?
That's interesting. So, well, I was really green when I first started. I was 19, and I was in fashion, and that's really kind of not the most fun industry. And I got sent to High Point because we were consulting for Warner Brothers, and so we needed more of lifestyle trends. And I came back, and I was like, I'm not doing fashion anymore. Home is so nice. The home industry is so nice compared to fashion. And, you know, I think what's interesting is it's really kind of changing from this old school male-driven industry, right? That's kind of the son takes over the business and all. Nothing's wrong with that. I mean, it does kind of pose some interesting conversations for women and people of color, but I think that bottom line, we're seeing a lot more inclusion and a lot more people aware of, you know, who they want to represent their company and who they want to kind of like bring a voice to the table. And we're seeing a lot more community-driven effects. I mean, my favorite thing about our industry is how community-driven it is. Like, you go to trade shows 8 times a year with the same people in America. You don't even have this in Europe, to be perfectly honest. You know, it's 4 shows, 8 times a year. You travel on the same circuit. You'll eventually do a dinner with almost everybody that you know in the industry. You know, I have the luxury of being able to walk around for all of the shows and talk to everybody. And I mean, at this point, I'm even going and being like, just how you doing? Do you need a drink? You need me to grab you a coffee? Like those types of things, because I care about these people, you know? So I think that has really kind of shifted. And especially, I think, you know, pre-pandemic, it was very community-driven, but even more so. Like so post.
More collaborative.
Way more collaborative. You're seeing a lot of collaborations, which is really fun. And a lot of brands bringing in like really cool voices to be collaborative with.
Listening. And actually listening and taking action.
Exactly.
And there's 2 different things. We had a lot of listening and a lot of lip service, but now you're seeing the action happen, huh? That's great. I think it's a lot. You know, it's a really nice space we're in. And I think there's always room for growth too, as we get more and more collaborative and kind of, I mean, I think Zooms and being able to like communicate virtually and not always have to be around each other has really transformed a lot as well. Being able to have some really great conversations all the time. So let's talk about women in the industry, and let's talk about inclusion for a minute, because we're seeing the former happening over the last, I think, the last 8 to 10 years, very strongly. Women in leadership positions in this industry, which I'll say it, it's about time. It should have happened a long time ago. But now we're seeing the word inclusion being talked about. Do you see it in action? How are you? You go to a lot of shows.
Yeah.
You go to shows all over the world. How do you feel over the past almost two decades? Any changes occurred in those two areas?
I feel like we're late. I feel like as an industry, we're really late. And I feel like we have a lot of work to do, to be perfectly honest, because it is still a very, very much a boys' club. This whole industry is
so you're saying other industries are like way
ahead of us. Fashion's way ahead of us. Beauty is beyond. Accessory world beyond. Tech world beyond. So it's very interesting to see our industry putter in this space, and not just for women, just people of color, anybody other than a white male sitting at the top as a CEO. It doesn't interest me anymore. And I think that says the most to me. I mean, not that there's no space for white males or white older males, for sure. There's room at the table. However, it's hard when you walk into a company or a brand and you see that it's just a bunch of men running the show. Because no offense, I am a woman. I can tell you need a woman's voice. We're talking about the interior design industry, the home furnishings industry.
Yeah.
Women typically run the space. So it's very strange to think that not more women are running or having voice. I'm sure they do behind the scenes, and especially in the product design attribute arena. But I think it's changing. I think that it is slowly moving in the right directions. But like kind of how we mentioned, we are a legacy industry.
Yeah.
So if you
True.
it's a family business and your son takes over, that doesn't leave much room for the daughters. However, we are starting to see a lot more daughters kind of take those spots, which is great. I mean, one of my favorites is Jodie Feiner at Fabric Hut. She's a genius, and she has revolutionized that business.
Wonderful.
So I think just seeing we're just starting to see them slowly come to the table, and I think it's also just a generation thing. But I am really excited about it because I think it's going to give just a slight alternate perspective to
another point of view, a vision that they don't have.
Exactly,
right?
Exactly, and also too, I think that no offense to men, women tend to be a little bit more nimble. And they're way more complex with their psychological habits. This is what I do for a living.
Slightly more observant.
Yes, yeah. I tend to study humans for a living. So I can actually tell you that women are a lot more complex and observant, but also, tend to be a little bit more nimble and flexible with things. And as we move through business, especially post-COVID, I think that's the key. I think that is also what trips up our industry a little bit of the times, is that they're not nimble enough. They're not able to translate online quick enough. They're not able to kind of hit these consumer and market shifts that are demands fast enough. And hopefully with more women kind of coming to the table, they'll be able to, breathe more space into the areas to give those voices. I think, I'm excited to just have more women involved in general. I think that most of the people running our industry that are women, like Caroline Hipple, they're so smart.
Oh, yeah.
They're brilliant. And it's really nice to see their perspective of how people buy and how people shop. You can't dismiss understanding that shopping behaviors are really ruled by women. So it makes sense to have someone with the same psychological patterns to be running running the actual product development cycles too.
Well, speaking of product development cycles, so I probably know the answer to this, but what do you expect to see this October market? Here we are just days away from it when this is being recorded.
Well, I mean, not a lot of shift and change. I don't foresee heavy new product launches, and I don't foresee a lot of true shifts in brand identity. I think, obviously we have a lot of sourcing issues. We have a lot of like
Supply chain, absolutely.
Supply chain.
The
and
phrase that pays these days, yeah.
Exactly. And so I think that people will be a little safe. And I think that's perfectly fine. Like, play to your strong suits. Like, this is not the time to like be playing a crazy poker game. So
for sure.
I think playing to safety and that's what I'm expecting. I think, this market in general will be more about community and networking and seeing your friends that you haven't seen in 2 years almost, and reconnecting with those business acquaintances and saying hi and making sure everybody's okay and that their mom's okay and that
I got an email
that you made it through this whole thing. And then next market, we can worry about all those product launches that you're bringing. I mean, I'm praying that people that are coming, that are buying, they do strong orders, but I think, it's a really tricky time. And I think this market in particular, I'm not projecting that there will be like any crazy launches. I do know of a couple, which are exciting. I think, maybe people are supposed to know, but Bobby Burke is launching with Karastan, like different kind of licensing opportunities.
Bobby's a big friend of ISFD. So
I love him. He's so great and awesome to work with, just such a joy. And so I know that there's some launches coming, and I think with those product launches, what's interesting is they're really more in the licensing arena. And that's because, that marketing voice that they have has been on that safe track, which is nice.
So you're saying, in a sense, really kind of something we talked about earlier, collaborating with a different point of view.
Exactly.
One you don't have in your business.
And a marketing reach that you don't have.
Oh, for sure.
That's the number one reason why you license, right? Is to actually get it into a voice, into a demographic that you don't have.
Yeah, build your reach and your audience. For
exactly.
Sure. Yeah. Wow. Well, so what's the next step? What's the next thing for Jaye Anna Mize? What's going on down the pike? I know what's happening this afternoon, no question. You're going to be very busy till 6 o'clock tonight.
Yeah.
So after that, obviously market, and then what's after that?
Well, we have more shows that are happening in New York. There's New York Design Week, and they've brought that, I think it's a couple months later this year. So we had 7 trade shows in the last 4 weeks, between starting in Milan, going through Maison, going to London Design Week. We have DecoRex this week. We have High Point, and then we have Wanted, ICFF, New York Design Week. So, we're just really inundated with all of this amazingness right now. Honestly, it was like a great refresh because, you can get so overstimulated in my job sometimes, but also like after 6 months, we were like so bored, like, all right, when's this going to happen again? All these poor magazines are having to shoot the same thing. So for us, it's really about keeping our ear to the ground to listen to like what are the true pulses that are going to be coming out of this and how people are feeling and how shows are doing and where are the design notions. And that will really kind of trickle to us how fast the adoption rates are going to be as we look at the landscape over the next 2 years. So I think,
which will bend and sway your predictions down the pipe. Okay.
Exactly. So I think for us, it's exciting. And we'll be in it until literally probably March of next year. Because after November, you have the holidays, then you go back to Europe for Heim Textile and Ambiente
put your big thick shoes on because it's winter.
Yes. Yeah. Oh gosh.
That'll go right up through your legs.
Yep. Exactly. So
I've been to Cologne many times. It's like, whoop.
It's like we had 18 months without doing trade shows. We did everything really digitally, and now it is like all inundated right back to us, which is actually quite funny because that's not happening in the fashion front as quickly.
Interesting.
Which is really interesting. They have very different manufacturing timelines and kind of adoption rates and turnover of trends versus home. Really, people.
This brings me to a question.
Okay.
This brings me a fun question, I hope. All right. You've observed a lot of things over a lot of years, and you've seen things come and go. And you don't have to mention companies, but you might mention a little bit about what you saw in terms of, one of the greatest successes that you can talk about, maybe even an unanticipated success, and then one of the greatest failures, or, we'll say learning experiences for someone in the industry that wanted to launch and it just went, phew. Any of those come to mind? Let's talk about successes. Let's be positive about this.
So you mean
one that was like unexpected? It came on the scene and a trend or a look, and you all were going, "Wow, that's better than we thought it would be."
Oh, okay. Well, it's interesting because that does happen.
Yeah.
But we work, so you have to realize, like, we work 2 years in advance. We have no validation to what we do.
Okay.
You literally have to just throw your ego right into the street and like just roll with this very vulnerable perspective all the time.
Okay.
You can't have an opinion. You have to be completely just a blank slate, no matter if it's good or bad. So it's hard sometimes for me to be like, oh, that was so successful, like I don't remember, all the time. Like
you're out there a few years.
Yeah, I'm writing my rent checks in like 2024.
I hear you.
But anyways, so I think one of the best ones that we kind of predicted was, and I mean, it's hard to talk about because I'm not used to it, but is the Joanna Gaines era. Mm-hmm. So what was interesting about her era and why it was so easy to predict was because she came out during a political year, which typically when there is an election in the U.S., that is when Americans get most traditional. Oh. So it is when you are craving those farmhouses, you are craving those kind of Americana aesthetics, and she boomed at the exact right time, and miraculously we had a huge trend development that paired exactly with where she was in the market.
Wow.
And I think that's I can't say like, oh, that's a big reason why Target picked her up. But we do work with Target.
Yeah, sure.
But, so when it's kind of like these big kind of rolling movements, I will say, and where they're fed the right information, she's doing something amazing. Her show picks up a lot of steam because everybody is really kind of feeling like, what the heck is going on right now? And they're wanting more security, and they're wanting kind of this American tradition and feeling patriotic. And she comes out with shiplap and farmhouse and all of this stuff that we hadn't seen in a while. And it was just this beautiful magic moment in the industry. We were like, that's kind of amazing.
It is funny how you see these ebbs and these flows. I remember a few years back that black on furniture with a little trimming was a hot thing with the French underneath it. And, they went from, it was going to be oak or it was going to be cherry or mahogany. And all of a sudden, well, let's do it in black. And it went crazy. And part of that must have been that two trends were coinciding at the same time.
I have another great example of, since you spoke about color, one of the biggest things that we were seeing happen in fashion is people of color were starting to get more and more of a voice, specifically around fashion items. So pantyhose was a huge conversation of like how there needs to be multiple shades of neutral. And we had really been in the home world, which is sometimes a little bit behind fashion, sometimes a little bit before. It really just depends on where the movement is. Right. But this one in particular, we were behind. We had been in this gray movement for a very long time. I think everybody was very sick of gray and really trying to look for this new neutral. And when all of those kinds of campaigns and voices came out with a lot of what was happening in the fashion and beauty world, even like more like Rihanna with all of her Fenty Beauty, she has like all of the shades for skins and that type of thing. We actually started seeing that shift into the home very quickly. And that was something that we predicted was there was going to be a lot more like skin tone neutrals and like more adaptions to multiple shades of neutrals, more like, kind of like blush tones and darker tones, which were really beautiful. And even now, as we look back at gray, there's no true gray anymore. It has underlying tones of greens or blues or purples that really kind of makes it feel a little bit more comforting overall. And it really got rid of that kind of like stark, rigid box that we had kind of built for a moment. So yeah, speaking to color, I mean, color psychology, you can go on. I can personally go on a lot of tangents about, but that was another great kind of success. And I remember sitting and we were doing a panel in Universal and I was talking about the skin tone colors that were coming. And I remember people being like, what is she talking about? And I was like, they're coming. And next market, boom, you saw blush everywhere. You saw darker shades of browns and like all of these kinds of more like comforting hues coming out, and gray dissipated.
Yeah. Gray was not the new black.
No,
anymore,
it wasn't. No, it wasn't.
I remember that statement years ago. So here we're coming out of COVID. It's soon, I think more and more people are going to be traveling the beginning of next, end of first quarter next year into the next summer and so forth. So, and it used to be that people would travel and they'd bring things home or bring influences from other cultures home. Are you seeing any of that as maybe a trend going forward the next couple of years? Something you'll probably hear about this afternoon that we won't know right away. But I'm guessing that might be one, since people will start, because they used to collect things and bring ideas home for their own, how their house looked.
Yeah, I mean, I think, things like 23andMe and Ancestry.com and all of these amazing new kind of like DNA tech, that has really spawned a huge... So it's less about like, I think, the travel and more about connecting to your roots, which is really interesting. Yes, we'll travel again. Do I think that people want to bring back the same amount of stuff? No. I think because we've all just decluttered our lives, we're going to be a lot more thoughtful in our consumption. And I'm not only projecting that, I'm pushing that as like a stamp of like, hey, we need to like be more thoughtful about our choices in our home and stop buying everything just because you can. But beyond that, with the DNA and people being able to figure out like their backgrounds, who they are, like I'm Scottish, so I'm like very drawn towards more of that traditional Scottish, ancestry. And it kind of makes me really look at the history there, but also it would make me kind of want to bring that back into my own home to represent who I am. I think there's a lot more personalization in homes and spaces, and we're really exiting this, what I call the cookie cutter stamp, where it's like, oh, your home is shabby chic. Oh, it's nautical. Oh, it's, these big buckets that we used to live in the home industry. That's all kind of dissipating, and we're seeing that consumers are really looking for personalization that brings that emotional connection for them. So, yeah, but they'll probably be traveling to see where their ancestors are from.
There's a lot of that. I hear that from some people I know in the travel industry, that it's a big trend towards, there was before, but it's going to be bigger when people get out and about, that they're going to be going to places their ancestors were from, and maybe even visiting cemeteries, looking at, and then looking at the towns and so forth, and bringing maybe just the, if nothing else, the influence back, in colors and so forth. I mean, let's face it. Look at our palate, our food palate, and tastes in this country over the last 5 years, but certainly in the last 10, we've got things in our diet we never even, some cases we couldn't spell, let alone know where they came from. And here we are.
That's very true.
Yeah. And here we are having them, using those spices, eating things we never thought we'd have on our table, and we love it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's part of the jazz, the fun, the verve of certainly what you see in your world. So I'm going to ask you another question, because we have a lot of students that do listen to this podcast, and many of them are trying to figure out what direction do they want to go. They're maybe in the middle of a design school curriculum. I know you've had you've been down to SCAD recently, Savannah College of Art and Design. Well, there's going to be a few of those students at the Pinnacle Awards this year. We always have a cheer off between design students, Appalachian, SCAD, UNC Greensboro. It's a lot of fun. So what would be your a couple of words of wisdom from Jaye Anna Mize to these young people thinking about careers in design and frankly in this industry?
You want me to be really honest?
Sure. I mean, they need to hear it.
I could say the biggest thing that I've really noticed, because I've been doing this for 16 years, and really, I mean, I started when I was a student myself, right? So And I get a lot of interns every season, and I will say, as students have come out recently, and I think it's a lot of the schools, they are positioning them to like have a very clear, loud voice, right, when they're in school. I think that's great. I think having the clear, loud voice is amazing. The problem is when they get into a work environment, they forget to listen. So they come off a little bit off-putting to people that have been in the industry for a really long time.
They sort of lose that collaborative.
Exactly. They lose the collaborative. They get really kind of stuck in, this is how they taught me to talk to you in college and get my voice across. And I'm supposed to be so serious and ask all of these, very poignant questions. And it's like, I feel like a lot of times the questions I get from students, they already know the answer to, which isn't a bad thing. But like, it's almost like they're too busy wondering the next question to listen
to what your answer really is.
Yeah, and I think,
which might influence the next question.
Well, the thing about design is you are never going to be coming out of school and going to a business and just being the rock star you were in school.
Okay.
In the sense of, you are going to learn this consumer, this manufacturing process, all of these different things. Right. Mm-hmm. And the best thing that you can do is just allow yourself time to come in, get acclimated, and listen to the process. Listen to what's happening, even if you know that it's not great. Learning and listening and growing really has a lot to do with sitting back and watching and doing your job. And obviously you want to step to the table when you can, and you want to, make those moves and stuff like that. But it's such an important step that I think is missing in today's, is like really kind of wanting to still learn.
Yeah.
When you actually get into the work environment, wanting to still, kind of have a mentor in your space. And I feel like that's really kind of missing a lot. I would be nowhere without any of my mentors that really kind of shaped and guided me. And I think really kind of allowing yourself to have a breath. I think we're in a very strong instant gratification, like time, movement, generation. Yeah. And success doesn't come with instant gratification. And I see a lot of, not students, but just people that get out of school and come into the work environment and burn themselves out really quickly. And then they get really frustrated and it makes them come off entitled and, all these things. And if you just take a breath, realize why you want to be here, listen and watch the process for a while, do it how they've been doing it before you try to implement change. Mm-hmm. Like, gain the trust of who you're around. That's my biggest advice.
I have to say that rings very, very true, Jay. I'm going to say that in my lifetime, that's one of the things that I learned early on and I applied. Some of it was traveling to Europe and seeing other cultures and so forth, or living with a family for a while.
Yeah, it's a great example. Yeah,
you have to listen. You have to understand a point of view that you've never experienced in your life and respect it.
Yeah,
and doing that, as you said, opens up a whole world of possibilities that you wouldn't have otherwise, because you've been off-putting, as you said earlier. The people that you should collaborate with maybe aren't willing to.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think with that too, when you're so kind of focused on putting your own voice in it and like all these things, it takes away from you being curious. So when you are traveling to see all of these other things and you're going to different shows and you're going to different museums and things like that, you almost lose your insight. You lose your actual insight, which is the most detrimental thing for you, is when you are so secular in your own bubble. You never can understand human behavior, much less the consumer. And that is your end goal at the end of the day, is to truly understand how people buy, why they buy the things they buy, why they're attracted to certain colors, how things make them feel. So when you're so kind of hungry and not adaptable to learn, you're missing all of that, which is your key fundamentals when you are getting out of school. It's almost like you have to really realize that you're being reborn again.
Yeah.
You know, and you're literally experiencing different thing like life in a sense.
Yeah,
like
that's true.
How to maintain. And I think also too, like there's nothing wrong with being hungry. I was extremely driven and hungry, didn't even know it for the most. Really, I just was in a really great kind of environment to grow, and I was very curious about learning a lot of different aspects of things. But there's been plenty of years in my career where we had no idea what I was doing, but I knew I was on the right path, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like I didn't have the VP title. I didn't have a bunch of money. I didn't have all these things. I slept on couches in Paris. I literally traveled like with no cell phone through Europe, like because that didn't really exist back then.
Yeah.
There wasn't an iPhone, which really dates me.
Yeah.
But I'm in that weird kind of generation that's like between tech and not. And so I think just putting yourself out there without the security blanket gets you farther sometimes and allows you to kind of see what life could offer you. You know, there's nothing wrong with like proposing, hey, I want to do this kind of thing with you. But I think you have to really gain the trust of the people that are around you before you do that.
No, they're all taught to build their own brand. The problem is you're going to work for someone who has a brand already. You better adapt.
And I think that is the problem, is that a lot of times people are like, or a lot of schools are like, yeah, build your own brand. And it's like, well, for what? To be an Instagram influencer? Like, where is that? Where do you project that's going to be in the next 5 to 10 years? Down the hole. So it's, and you know, you're going to you really have to go in and kind of like adapt yourself to these brands. Wow. You've said it perfectly.
On that note, Jay, I want to thank you for that. I hope we've gotten you all jazzed up for your day-long meeting. I'm certain you're going to be on top of your game when that panel comes up. It's going to be exciting. So thank you for your time here today.
Thank you. I love talking about this and talking with you. It's always fun.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you, Jay. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Design Between the Lines is produced by Element Studio with the International Society of Furniture Designers. We record in High Point, North Carolina. To find videos of these podcasts, be sure to subscribe to the International Society of Furniture Designers YouTube channel. To learn more about ISFD, visit isfd.org. And don't forget to subscribe to hear more industry stories of design between the lines.